take this back. All right, welcome all to the Team Manager Crash Course Training for Wisconsin DI 2023. My name is Chrissy Burr. I am a DI alum. This is year 30 for me in the program. I started on teams when I was 9 and have not been able to stop. I've loved it so much and just keep coming back. I have done a whole lot of things. I've been on the board for Wisconsin DI, the training director in the past, and been training team managers for years. I also do a lot of work in our appraiser training side and on the tournament side. I have been an international challenge master twice for the engineering challenge and have a lot of experience on that side as well, and a lot of experience working with kids and teams and team managers over the years. I have also been on teams that have placed last at our regional or local tournaments and first at global finals. So I've been in both boats. So all of you rest assured, everybody starts somewhere and everybody starts from scratch. And a lot of this comes from learning. So just like to level set that it is a learning process and things go. This is just kind of a smattering of some photos of me, my years growing up and as me as a volunteer. So I'm really excited. I love training team managers and working with you all, and we are here to support you on your way. So our goals tonight are really not to dive into any of the challenges and their specifics, but to focus on what is DI, what in the world is your job as a team manager and as a team facilitator, and what resources do you have and how are you going to use them? We don't expect you to learn everything today, but we want to leave you with a lot of things that will help you throughout your team season and your journey, and know that you are here with help and support. Michaela Becker and Ann Culling are on the call with us tonight. Both are part of our Wisconsin DI leadership team and are very willing to help and answer questions as well. And there's a whole bunch of other folks behind the scenes, so you are not alone. And thank you so much for volunteering as team managers. We never have a lack of kids that want to do DI. Usually the limiting factor is a team manager that's willing to work with them on a team. So whether you volunteered, were voluntold, or however you ended up in the position that you're in, we thank you. We really, truly could not do this without you. All right, so what is DI? We are a program and an organization. We are very large. We are worldwide. So it's a nonprofit with a very, very small staff that's located in New Jersey, mostly remote at this point. But there's 150,000 participants that do DI every year in 42 states, 28 countries, 6 continents. So we are local here in Wisconsin, but there are a lot of other people around the world that do DI. And it is mostly run by volunteers. So locally here, as Wisconsin DI, we are what we call your local affiliate, which is wisconsindi.org. We have an executive director named Mary Bykowski and a board of directors that runs the organization. And we are divided into 10 different regions, with each region having 1 or 2 separate regional directors. So those of you on the call may be from Blackhawk or Green Bay or Bay Lake or Milwaukee or South Central, so those are your regions, and you can find where you are. This is a screenshot of the Wisconsin DI website. If you don't know, you can go under regions and you can see all of these listed here. And contact information for your regional directors can be found under this region's menu on the Wisconsin DI website. If anybody's here from Milwaukee, Ann is your contact here on the call, just to put a face there. But we have wonderful RDs in all of our regions that are more than willing to help in any way that they can for you to have a successful tournament experience. So who can be on a team? Most of you and many of you have probably already started this, but a DI team is up to 7 team members. You have to have at least 2, and it's students kindergarten through university can participate. And then every team has to have at least 1, could be more, team manager at least 18 years or older that just help the students stay on track and make sure everything is going as planned and all the logistics are happening. And every team picks a challenge. One really cool thing is that there are 6 categories for DI every year, but the challenges are brand new. So teams are able to pick one of 6 different challenges that focus on a different area. These challenges are all written by a team of volunteers and industry experts, which I think is also a really cool thing and a unique part of our program. I've written 5 challenges in the past too, and it's a really rewarding experience. And I'm currently dissecting challenges and reviewing things for future seasons too. So it's really fun. And then there is also a team challenge one every year. That's a very specific Rising Stars team challenge. So that's for our early learners, your kindergartners, first, second graders. So when we say the challenges, this is what we mean. They go by a few different names. So you may hear it as technical or pinball heroes. That's the challenge name. So the technical challenge is the challenge every year. Pinball heroes is the specific challenge name for the 23-24 DI season. So there's technical, engineering, scientific, fine arts, improvisational, and service learning. The idea behind that is that kids can pick a challenge that's an area of interest that they want and are excited to do. Every single one of these challenges has a performance component, but then others have different things, like they may have to build something or do some research, incorporate technical elements. So everyone has a little bit of something for everybody to help make sure that the kids get to work on something that they're really excited about. When does the DI season take place? Now, it is typically, it happens every year during the school year, that culminates in our global finals tournament in May in Kansas City. So teams are starting to form now. Some teams start in September. Some teams don't start until January. So teams typically spend 2 to 4 months preparing for the tournament. And our sectional tournaments, which is our first local level of tournaments in Wisconsin, starts at the end of February. So if you are just starting now or you haven't met with your team yet, you are just fine. Don't worry. This is about the time that most of our teams in Wisconsin get started. So you're right on track for that. We have 4 sectional tournaments in Wisconsin DI. So each of the regions are grouped into these tournament days. So the Northeast sectional is our earliest sectional on Saturday, February 24th at Algoma this year. And that is the Green Bay, Bay Lake, and Northeast regions. Our Northwest sectional tournament, which is West Central and St. Croix, is Saturday, March 2nd. I think at Hudson Middle School, but I wasn't quite sure on the school, but it's in Hudson. And then our other 2 tournaments are our Southeast sectional tournaments, so Milwaukee and South Central, Saturday, March 2nd in Muskego. And then the East Central sectional tournament is the Winnebago, Kettle Moraine, and Black Hawk regions, and that is Saturday, March 16th at Kennedy Middle School in Germantown. So your teams will go to not all 4 of these, but one of the 4 of these tournaments for their local tournament, where they'll compete against other teams in their own level. So elementary kids will compete against elementary in their challenge, middle against middle, and secondary level against secondary level. And then the top teams at each sectional tournament will advance to the state tournament or affiliate tournament. They're used term-wise interchangeably. So if you hear affiliate or you hear state, that's the same thing. We're not quite sure yet how many teams will advance. That'll depend on how many numbers we have in each of our tournaments and teams, but always the top few teams advance. Sometimes we're able to send a few more. So at your sectional tournaments, so you'll work ahead of time, and then at your sectional tournament day, your teams are going to present twice. So you will have a team challenge performance time and an instant challenge performance time. And they can be anytime during the day. So when you're planning and working with your parents to figure out when these tournament dates are, people really should plan to be there for the entire day. There are accommodations that can be made if there's another school event or a conflict where you had to be in the morning first thing or in the afternoon. Folks will try the best to accommodate that. But for planning, plan for that full day, because you very well could have your team challenge in the morning and your instant challenge in the afternoon. And we're back to in-person award ceremonies at the end of the competition. So that'll be announced at the schedule. It really depends on how many teams are there during the tournament day. But at the end of the day, there is a celebration and award ceremony that's really fun, where everybody gets together and the winning teams are given medals and they get to have their name announced and celebrate their achievements for the day. So I encourage you all to plan on sticking around for that as well and cheering everybody else on and being part of that. And then those teams that do well enough at their sectional will be invited. Our affiliate tournament is Saturday, April 6th at UW Green Bay. Rising Stars teams are not part, they do the sectionals, they don't do the affiliate tournament. And then the top teams from our affiliate tournament get to advance to the global finals tournament in May in Kansas City. So if you think that global finals might be part of your journey this year, plan ahead for that. I'm not going to talk about logistics and things for that, but you're probably going to need to do some fundraising and some planning. So just think about that. If you think your teams, if that's something that they want to do, and global finals may be in your journey this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about team goals and what that may look like here in a little bit. Can we pause here for questions, Michaela? All right. So why do we do DI? It's not just fun. There's lots of really good things in here of why we do DI. Teams learn, so much. Teams learn higher level thinking and improve their critical, creative thinking and collaborative problem solving. And they also learn and experience the creative process and develop new friendships and learn to work together. Having been on DI teams myself and have continuing through working with DI, it is really amazing just how important the process of getting together with a group of people that you may or may not know before and rolling up your sleeves and solving something and coming together to do that is for kids. It really teaches them to work together as part of teamwork, to think about how and what all the possibilities are to solve the challenge. These challenges are incredibly open-ended. There's not just one way to do them and to do these things, which I think is really great, because so many times kids are studying to a test or to one specific answer, and DI is not like that at all. It throws that out the window, allows the kids to say what if, and really test and try and fail and learn and work along the way. And it's all hands-on learning. So I think that there's a lot of power in that as well. So this is kind of the pedagogy behind DI. I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but this is in a lot of the materials. But there's, I think, a few things that are really unique about our program. No interference, I think, is one of the biggest things that's unique. This is all kid driven and kid done. So as team managers, you're there to facilitate the process, but all of the ideas, all of the actual building and work is all of the kids. So this isn't one of those things where you go and you look and you're like, yeah, that kid's dad did that. We don't see that in DI. We see that everything is kid created and kid driven, which is really awesome. Resource awareness. There are budgets and you can't just use anything. And so kids need to learn about what's available to them for resources and what can they do out of things like cardboard and duct tape and recycled materials, because sometimes they can't afford to just go buy all new things. And so it really allows them to think about that aspect as well, which is really important. Clarifying questions. So DI is a lot about thinking about the what ifs and the whys and asking a lot of just questions about why something doesn't work and how could they make it better, and just learning and thinking through that, which is a really great skill set to learn and helps with that problem solving aspect. Rapid ideation and implementation. This is a quick process. And so kids, especially in the instant challenge where they walk in a room and they have to solve a challenge in just a few minutes that they've never seen before, have to learn to generate ideas and come up with things really quickly, make decisions, and make things happen, which is great life skills for them to learn and is something that is really, really important. And then I think the last one being authentic self-expression. There is so much freedom for kids to be themselves and to do the things that they are excited about and build and showcase what they're proud of as part of these challenges. And I think that that is just really, really fun to watch. And you as team managers will see that, to see what the kids build and come up with and their personalities coming through into their presentations, because it's not pre-scripted. It's all up to them what they want to do. And I think that that's really awesome. And as part of all of this, you're going to go through something called the creative process. So you're going to start, and there's tons of documentation. We're not going to dive really deeply into this tonight, but to start, you're going to recognize. That recognize phase is, what is it that we have to do? You're going to read the challenge. You're going to read the rules of the road and figure out what all those requirements are. And then you're going to imagine and start generating ideas and doing research and thinking about all of the possibilities about how you might solve that challenge. And then you're going to collaborate, and the kids are going to work together to actually write their scripts and build their sets and make their costumes and do all of those things to solve the challenge. And then you're going to get to the assessment phase where they come to tournament and get scored on how they did and get that well, actually that's the evaluate and celebrate. But the assessment is that internal, before they get to tournament, I should say, process where they're looking at it and saying, okay, what did the challenge say that we needed to do? Did we meet those requirements? Do we have all our elements? What can we do to make this better? And so that internal team assessment phase that they have happening, and then they go and get the external evaluation, which is the tournament experience where a team of appraisers will actually be putting down scores and they'll see how they compare to other teams. And then we want to make sure that we're celebrating those accomplishments as well. So this process is not unique to DI and can be taken in and used in anything, in any project that they do elsewhere. So I think it's really great to teach the foundations for this for the kids so that they can be successful in everything that they do and kind of learn what it's all about to start from some point A and get to point B and what that looks like in between. So the DI components of how we do this, there are three main things that you're going to hear about as you're looking at Team Challenge and we're talking about tournaments. So 75%, so your central challenge and your team choice elements is everything that you're going to do ahead of time. So that is your technical challenge, your engineering challenge, your scientific challenge. And plus something called team choice elements, which we'll talk about, which are open items for scoring that your team can pick, that they get to decide what wants to be scored. So 60% is what the challenge outlines is being scored. 15% is what they get to decide that they also want to get scored on. And then 25% is that instant challenge where they walk into a room on tournament day and they have to solve a challenge that they haven't seen before. So those three components make up what we call the DI equation and are what you're going to be working on to prepare for throughout the DI season. So the team challenge, like we said, has those two parts, the central challenge and the team choice elements. And during your team meetings, you're going to mostly be spending the time developing and refining those team challenge solutions. You'll be practicing and working on instant challenges as well, but this is where most of the time is spent, which makes sense, right? Because the team challenge is worth up to 300 points. And so as you want to think about things, you make sense to spend more time on the parts that there are more points for. So the central challenge is really, there's key components of each challenge. There's a scoring page in each challenge. I don't have screenshots of that. We're not going to kind of go through that today, but where you can focus on, the technical elements or the story, or there are different parts and components that you're going to focus on that the challenge breaks down. Each challenge expects that the kids aren't going to know how to solve it on day one. There's research components. We expect that they're going to have to go out and learn some new skills and learn how to do some stuff. And that's part of what makes this really cool, is that they're learning about, they're taking what they already know, and then they're adding on to it and continuing to learn throughout their season, their DI season. One or more of the challenges involves an improvisational component. We have our improv challenge, and that is really, the kids do a lot of research about a lot of different components, but they don't know what their performance is going to be until tournament day. They come and they put together an improv skit right on tournament day. They're not writing a script ahead of time, which a lot of kids really love, and it can be really fun. And one or more of our challenges could involve an international or an intercultural theme. They don't always, but sometimes they do. All right, team choice elements, and I've got some examples on the next slide. So team choice elements really are a play for teams to showcase what they love and what they're good at. It can literally be anything that the kids want it to be that's not already being scored as part of the central challenge. So it could be a costume, it could be a prop, it could be their script writing or their acting, it could be a choreographed dance. It really can be anything that the kids want it to be, which I think is really fun, because it allows the kids that are really interested in certain areas to spend some time making or creating something that they're really proud of, that they again get to bring to tournament and have that scored as well. So this is just some examples. This is from Global Finals, but there's some examples of some team choice elements that we saw. So this little tree here was a team choice element. It was made out of an umbrella that they used. It looks like some hula skirts, some grass skirts to put that together. This adorable little girl here, her little bird costume, that's all coffee filters and cupcake liners and things like that they put together to add texture and make it look like feathers. This backdrop here, you can see, has cups and paper and lots of texture and cardboard and lots of things. So all very accessible things. You see here, they've got a car and they've got some tree costumes and just kind of different elements here. And then on the bottom down here, this is a Wisconsin team. This is honestly one of the coolest backdrops I've ever seen. Those are all wine corks that they got a winery to donate to them, that they used as part of their backdrop for the trees. So you can see all of these things are not using expensive materials or crazy materials. They're all common things that these teams have found and incorporated and made. And they can be done very simply or very complexly, based on, where the kids are at. Obviously, the elementary costumes are a little simpler. And then you see like this, backdrop was made by older kids. But just some examples there, because sometimes it's really hard to say, okay, but really, what is a team choice element? Anything you want it to be. And then instant challenge. So instant challenge, they're going to walk in and they're going to solve a challenge that they haven't seen before. We're going to make sure that you have lots of tips and tricks about how to work with your kids on instant challenge out of tonight's session. And while you don't know what your challenge is ahead of time, there's a lot of things that you can do so that your teams are very prepared for this to happen. And this is really great because it teaches those on your feet problem solving skills, time management strategies. They don't have a lot of time to do this. And then also creatively and critically looking at materials and what they can use, because they're being given a very limited amount of supplies as part of these as well. And it's 1/4 of their tournament score, and instant challenges can be different kinds. They can be performance-based. Your kids might be asked to put on a performance and a presentation where they have costumes or they don't have costumes. They might be task-based, where they go in and they have to build a tower as tall as they can out of popsicle sticks and pipe cleaners and cups and rubber bands and things. Or they could be the combination of the two, where they may have to do some sort of a task or build something and then also put on a performance. And so you're never going to know what kind of instant challenge your kids have at the tournament. So it's important that you're practicing lots and lots of different things. So this is just kind of a grid here of some things to think about. So as you're picking instant challenges, you may want to consider thinking about different kinds of challenges that fit into these different categories to just kind of help your kids get used to lots of different kinds of challenges. All right, where and when to meet. Sometimes as a team manager, your school coordinator may say, all right, here's a team, you're meeting on Tuesdays after school. Other times, you may have to figure it out with your kids based on what works for you. And as a team manager, that is totally fine. Your meeting days and times should absolutely fit your schedule, and you need to come up with something with you and your team that makes sense for you. So in general, especially if you have younger teams meet to start usually like once a week for 1 to 2 hours in the season. And then as the tournament approaches, oftentimes you may need some additional meetings and sessions if you need to get things built or done, or some longer sessions if you're painting backdrops or things like that. This is really going to depend on a few things. One, how old are your kids, right? If you've got a team of 3rd graders, their attention span is probably going to be shorter. Well, maybe not a team of high schoolers, depends on the high schoolers. But typically, if you've got younger kids, they're not going to be good for a 4-hour meeting. They're going to be done. Everybody's going to be tired. Everybody's going to be frustrated. So don't feel like you have to meet and commit to hours and hours and hours. That being said, some teams meet a lot more. When I was starting on teams and I was in elementary school, we met once or twice a week after school. When I was in high school, we met every day after school and 4 hours on Saturdays or Sundays, because our goal was to win global finals. And that's what we needed to do that. So it's also important to kind of level set what you and your kids want to get out of the DI season. If you're just new and you're having fun and you're not super competitive, you probably don't need to meet as much. But if you have a team of kids that are super competitive and like winning is important, you may need to meet more often. There is no right or wrong about that. Just some things to think about. What's most important is that you align with your expectations, set your expectations about when you're available as a team manager, and set meeting times and days that work for you and work for your kids. So really, there's no concrete right or wrong way to do this. Where do you meet? Sometimes you have a room or a place at school. Sometimes you're going to meet in the garage or in the basement. Sometimes you may also think about what you're trying to do during your team meetings. If you're going to be painting backdrops or making big things, you may need an alternate space to do that in, or a place that has a little bit better ventilation. So when you're planning your team meetings, think about what you're trying to accomplish at those meetings as well. And you may need to figure out a place that's different than where you normally meet to be able to do that. Also think about, where are your costumes, props, and things going to be stored? in the beginning and right now, you're not going to have stuff, so you have a little bit more flexibility. But as you get closer to tournament, you are going to have all of those things. And so, think about that. Also think about, are you in a place where everything has to be pristine when you leave? Or are you going to be in a place where they can leave things out after a team meeting? And just kind of talk through what that looks like and plan accordingly, right? My team met at the school, so we had to clean up after ourselves and keep everything consolidated. Whereas I know other people have said, you know what, the basement is the DI room for now. We're not going to look down there. It's just going to be a little bit of a disaster for a couple months, and that's just the way it is. So think about that and set kind of expectations with your team as well about what they need to do for each team meeting, and find a space that works for you. Your job as a team manager is to make sure that your team has everything that they need out of practice to solve their challenge. So that is the time and the space, but boundaries are important. You are not expected to be anything and everything to your teams. So just establish guidelines and what you can and cannot do and goals there, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Another thing to think about is that your team doesn't always have to be together to get work done. It is totally fine to send homework home with kids, to do things between your team meetings, or to have a couple kids get together and work on something, even if the whole team can't get together. Or, everybody's a lot more familiar with Zoom and virtual meetings. If that works for your team to work through some things, totally fine. Whatever works for your kids is a successful way to meet. So you can be flexible and you're not going to do it wrong. As much as possible, it's really good if you know when you're going to meet ahead of time to set out a Google Calendar or a paper calendar or something at the beginning of the season, so that all of the important dates of when you expect your kids to be there are there. So include your team meetings, include your sectional tournament days, include the affiliate tournament as well, just to start thinking about that for planning purposes. And then that way you can have conversations with your parents about if there's going to be conflicts with any of those early on, so that you're not finding out the day before the tournament that somebody's not going to be there and you're expecting them to be there. So really encourage you to kind of work through all of that and just kind of set this established cadence early on. Not saying things can't change with your meeting schedules, but I think everybody's busy. So that's a shared Google Calendar could be really useful. All right, I'm going to pause. When I told you this was going to be a marathon. All right, so I agreed to be a team manager. Now what do I do? I'm sure a few of you are probably feeling like this. All right, I got these kids and now what do I do with them? But we are here to help. So your role as a team manager is a really special one. And it's a little bit different than if you've coached other things. But we're going to help you navigate that. So these are just kind of some bullet points. This is all out of the roadmap, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here at the end of this training and how you can use that. But we consider team managers to be creativity catalysts. See, that's a fun title to add to, right? What are you doing? I am a creativity catalyst. You are there to help your team members develop and express their individual and group creativity. You're going to present a safe space to help them really be able to be themselves and be their best. You are an educator. You are there to guide your team members as they learn about teamwork, tools, skills, plans, practicing. You are there to guide them through all of that. You are also the challenge expert. So just because you can't come up with the ideas and actually build the team solution doesn't mean that you can't be the one that knows what's in their challenge and what those requirements are. So we'll talk a little bit more about interference, but we want you to understand those challenges and help your kids break it down to make sure that they understand what it is that they have to do. Because if you don't know what they have to do, it's going to be really hard for them to know what they have to do. You're going to be an interference deflector. So you're going to help make sure that that team solution is really, truly team directed and team developed. And it's not usually all of you that are the interference risk. It is the well-meaning, helpful parents at home that often want to get their fingers in things. So it is your job to kind of help make sure that everybody understands what interference means and that everything that's coming in, if it comes from home, is actually kid made, and you're keeping this as their solution. You are the chief safety officer. It is never interference from stopping something unsafe from happening. So it is your job to help teach your kids good skills to use tools, power tools, do all of the things that they need to do, and provide a safe space, both physically and also emotionally, where they can have a good experience and want to come and feel safe to participate in the DI experience. You are a facilitator. You're going to be the manager of the space, the calendar, the agendas, the plans, the celebrations. So just making sure that they have everything they need to actually facilitate the creation of their solutions. And you're going to be managing the questions. You're going to get really, really good at asking lots of questions. So we don't want you to guide your teams to specific answers, but you can ask lots of questions to help them figure out how they need to solve the challenges. So really, your job is to facilitate the process, not the solution, but the process of how they get there. So you're going to develop program and process expertise through their practices. You're going to guide them to accept roles and responsibilities and learn how to work as a team. And you're going to be their biggest cheerleader because we want you to celebrate every step along the way. So it's those small victories. So maybe it's the first time nobody cried at a team meeting. That's a reason to celebrate. You may laugh, but sometimes, kids get frustrated and the tears come out, especially with the little ones. Maybe you've been stuck for 3 weeks trying to come up with a solution to something and they finally figured it out. Then you should celebrate that because it's the process. It's not how well somebody scores or somebody places a tournament. That's the important part of this DI journey. Characteristics of a great team manager. Distinguishing the process from the content. You are totally fine to be in the process. We don't want you in the content. We want you to remain objective. You may be looking at the ideas or something that your kids are creating and thinking, that's stupid or that's never going to work. We want you to remain objective and don't share those thoughts because they might just surprise you. It is amazing what kids can manage to put into a script that may or may not make sense, but they love it and it makes sense to them, or a solution that you think is never going to work that they keep trying and it turns out in the end. So we want you to be objective and let them work through that. As a team manager, you help teams work through their blocks to the process. If they get stuck, you help them get unstuck by learning a new skill or pivoting down a different path. That's your job. You assume or share responsibility for the group journey. We don't want you to be hands-off team managers that just show up, bring the snack and sit on your hands the whole team practice and don't say or do anything. You're part of this process and you're part of this journey too. You just have a different role. We want you to ask lots of questions rather than telling them how to do something. Not just because telling them is interference, but because they're going to learn a lot more if they figure it out themselves than if you tell them to do it. We want you to help build relationships and trust among team members. Many of you probably have kids that are not friends on your team together. And so how do they work together and learn how to work together? Because teamwork is hard and it doesn't just come naturally for a lot of people. It's just like those other skills, working as a team is a skill that they need to learn. You're going to listen without interrupting, help keep your teams on track, and teach skills. And when we say teach skills, we don't mean you have to be the one that knows how to do everything. You can ask for help. You know, if somebody's knows how to, like, say somebody's parent knows how to sew, have them come in and teach them how to sew. Somebody is really great building things. Have that person come in and teach some basic skills. Not the solution, but just how to use a hammer, how to use a saw, you know, how to do some basic skills are really good things that you as a team manager can do to help then the kids come up with their solutions. One of the most important things that you can do is set the tone for a supportive, safe space. If everybody comes to a meeting and people are saying, oh, that's stupid, or why would we ever want to do that? Your kids aren't going to want to share their ideas. You want to encourage everybody that no idea is a bad idea, and they're just ideas, and you choose to work with some of them and use some of them, and others you don't. You want to maintain an atmosphere where they trust and collaborate and they want to work together. Value change that leads to growth. Recognize and respect differences. Some of the most successful DI teams that I've seen, and the most successful DI team I was ever on, we were not all the same. We were not all friends. We were incredibly different. The worst DI experience I ever had was a 6th grade team of girls who were my friends. It was terrible. We fought all the time and we accomplished nothing. Everything fell apart at tournament and it was awful. The most successful team I was on, I was friends with a few members, but not with other members. And we were all brought different skills to the table, which meant we were stronger together than we would have been apart. So it's important to help your kids recognize that just because you're not friends doesn't mean you can't work well together and be a better team because of it. And be willing to guide your team through learning and using different tools. And then offer encouragement. That really goes a long way. Like, I'm proud of you guys. Wow, great job today. That was really awesome. You know, and if it's been especially if it was a frustrating team meeting, find something positive and encouraging out of it so that they leave feeling okay about it, and let some fun happen along the way. You know, if they're getting too serious, take a break and play a game, do something fun, because that's part of the shared experience. And that game is team building and is ultimately going to help them work better together and continue to move forward as well. So interference, we talked a little bit about this before, but I think that this interference triangle is a really good visual to understand interference. So you as a team manager absolutely can and should help the team build the foundation. And that is understanding the rules and the rules of the road and the team challenge and skills that they need to learn to solve their team challenge. The goal is, if you set them up for success with a strong foundation, then they can take everything that you've taught them and apply that to their solution. And that's where you're going to be hands off. Interference means help from any non-team member, including team managers, parents, and siblings. This is the hardest one because out of sight, out of mind. Teachers, often at school, are willing to be helpful and they don't understand the rules of interference. So make sure that, you know, the kids know about interference as well, to help not ask teachers for help and then get solutions out of that, or other students that aren't part of the DI team. So only the members on your team are allowed to participate in the solution. Interference can include a few different things. It can be actually building or creating a part of the team solution. So that's like the easy part, right? You mom sewed a costume, or, you know, somebody wrote the script for the team. But it can also be suggesting certain materials, processes, methods, or ideas that the team should use to create their solution, or directly leading a team to a specific solution. It is expected if you have an elementary team that you're going to have to help guide your kids on how to do things because they're not going to know, and how to guide your teams into some research, right? But say, they want to make a costume or build a backdrop. They want to say, hey, I need to put these two boards together. And you come back with a hammer and a nail. Is that the only way to attach those two boards? No, it's not. Maybe the kid just wanted to duct tape those two pieces together. And you've just guided them into a specific solution that a hammer and nail is the only way to do that. So offering lots of different options, or having a conversation about how do you build a backdrop, or what are the different ways you can attach things without the specific solution in mind, is what we want you to do. So ask yourself, is what I am asking or what I am doing leading them to do something in one specific way only? Or is it giving them lots of options that they can pick from so that it's up to the team to come up with the solution themselves? Skills. Skills are things that your team members already bring to the team. So it's really good early on to figure out what your kids already know and like to do. Does anybody know how to sew? Does anybody know how to build things? What skills do your team members already know how to do that they can teach the other members of their team how to do? Also, what skills do the parents of your kids have, right? Like they are a great resource and a great way for you to channel their enthusiastic participation into something that you want them to be participating in, is by doing some skills workshops. And do this early on in the season. Don't wait until they need to learn a skill. So if you have a team meeting where you learn how to sew, or a team meeting where you learn how to use some basic power tools early on, then when they come up with their solution, it might open some possibilities for thinking about how they could do something more, because they now know how to do something, and they would be thinking about it differently than if they hadn't learned those skills. And B, if there are no ideas and they're not creating their solution, you have not even had a risk of interfering, right? Because that happened way before the team was actually building their solution. We want you to build a toolbox that they can then apply to their team solution. It is also not interference if they need to learn how to do something for you to teach them a skill. You just need to do it on something else that's not on the actual thing that they're building. And then they have to take that skill and apply it to their challenge solution. The challenge and the rules of the road. So that's the skills part, that first part of the bottom triangle that we want you to help them build. Then we want you to work on the challenge and the rules. So this is your team challenge that you can find in the resource area. So it is the requirements, the limitations, and the rules. We want you as team managers to understand these. We want your team members to read them and understand them as well. And it is absolutely not interference for you to help your team understand what those requirements are. If that means you have a 4th grade team who is not going to be successful if you print off a copy of the challenge and handed it to them to read, and instead you need to bullet out what they need to do, that's okay. That is not interference. So what does the challenge say? And if you don't understand, you have an opportunity to write in for team clarification. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The team solution on the top, that's the area you need to stay out of. So all of the ideas, all the work has to come from those teams, and it is interference if you are in that. But as you can see, there are lots of things that you can do to help without interfering and being in that solution part of the triangle. Every team signs something that we call the Declaration of Independence. And I think that this is really cool. Your team is going to declare that they promise that everything that they do as part of this team solution is their own. And they're going to sign this and fill this out as part of their materials before a tournament that they turn in. And so pay attention to this and walk through this with your kids, because we want them to understand and be proud of this, that they're saying, yep, we did that. And we promise that we did all of that. So things you can do as a team manager, we've talked at some of these. Provide learning opportunities for your team. Teach skills, not solutions. And that provide learning opportunities is key. You do not have to have all these skills yourself. Ask for help where you need to, but just give them some guidelines. You can use instant challenge and team builders effectively. There is no interference in instant challenge practice. So if your team is struggling with something in their team challenge solution, find an instant challenge that helps them work through that, and then talk about it as solutions to the instant challenge. Then when they take that aha moment from the instant challenge and apply it to their team challenge solution, you haven't interfered. You've just taught instant challenge skills, and they've learned and taken that into their team challenge. Teach your team and parents about interference. In the roadmap, there's an interference contract. We'll show you about that a little bit later. But outlines that, because if the kids know what interference is, they'll push back when somebody else is trying to help. If your parents know, it'll be a better experience if they understand what they can and can't do. And then ask lots of open-ended questions. Interference examples and what we could do instead. So a parent is helping with a project at home. If they're getting real hands-on, invite them to share those skills, put them to a productive use. The manager telling a team member where to stand during a script practice may not seem like a big deal, but it's totally interference. Instead, record their performance and play it back for them and ask them what they see. If somebody's standing in front of somebody else, they're going to see that in the video that you show them back. And if they don't, ultimately, that's their choice. But a lot of times you can help by putting it back at them so that they have an opportunity to see what you see. A parent demonstrating how to do a skill on the team's actual prop. Instead, do it on something unrelated to the solution, and then let the kids come back and then repeat it and do it in their actual stuff. An adult fixing a prop at the tournament. Things can break in transport. Where we see a lot of interference is actually walking the halls at a tournament, and it's not usually intentional, so think about that ahead of time. Work with your kids to brainstorm ideas about how they can fix things themselves if something breaks. Get a fix-it kit and have all the things that they need, so that when that happens, the teams are like, nope, we got this, and they have a plan and they can just make that happen. Team manager makes a trip to the hardware store to purchase supplies without a team provided list. This could be interference if you are making decisions about exactly what the team needs to purchase versus you have an exact list in mind. I've got a worksheet that we can share with you here in a minute to talk through that. Team manager cuts a board for elementary because they felt it was unsafe. It is never interference to stop a team member from cutting a board or doing something that you feel is unsafe. But it is interference for you to then do that yourself. It is your job as a team manager to rather help the team find a way to do it safely themselves. Whether to teach them how to use that tool to do it in a way that's safe, or, cardboard is a very valid option for backdrops and props if you don't feel that your team is up to power tools. Also, things like, at Home Depot, it is not interference to have a board cut to size. That is a service that they offer. Now, if you have them miter the corners and do like 10 cuts and make it really specific, yeah, that's interference. But if you're buying a board and it's getting cut to 6 feet, that is a service that they offer, and it is not interference to have that happen. So just something to keep in mind. So after this training, we're going to send out some additional worksheets and some things for you to help you. This is something that I really like that's really simple. It's a material requisition form. It's something that you as a team manager can have your team fill out if they need stuff that you don't already have. Because it helps them think about what they need, how much it costs, where they're going to get it, and helps them do the legwork so that you're not just going out and making a decision at the store to buy, say they want glue and they mean wood glue or Elmer's glue and you go and buy them super glue. You've just made a choice that you may not have thought that was leading them down a certain path, but you don't want to make that choice for them. You want them to think through that when they say they need glue, to do a little bit of research and figure out what kind of glue they want. So we'll give you a copy of this worksheet, and if it's helpful, we hope you use it. Interference contract, this is in the rules of the road. It's something that the team member signs, the team manager signs, and the parents sign. So it's just a really good way to level set what interference is and make sure that everybody understands that. All right, question break. All right. So as a team manager, one of the most important things for you to do is we don't expect you to have everything memorized and know how to do everything right now. But we want to help you know what's available and where you can find what you need when you need it. And so we're going to spend some time walking through what these resources are so that you can feel comfortable that when you get there, you can go after what you need. So the resource area is going to be a really great place for you. This is where you log in on the DI site. This may look a little bit different than yours does because I have appraiser rights and challenge master rights, not team manager rights. But one of the best places to find all of these documents is in the resource area. So once you log in, there'll be a documents, view documents. And if you go under the program materials and team challenges, this is where all your team challenges will be located, the rules of the road, and the roadmap. So these things are all going to be right there for you to take a look at and download. There are 3 things that are required to solve a DI challenge: the rules of the road, the team challenge, and the published team challenge clarifications. These are the rules that the teams use. These are our rules that the officials and appraisers use. Everything else is just there as extra guides. The rules of the road, please read it. I know it's long, but it's really important. Is available in the resource area. This outlines and sets the foundation for all of the procedures, the rules, the required forms for the DI program. So it's really important that you read and understand this and reference back to it regularly. This is going to be particularly important when you're filling out your tournament data forms, filling out your cost sheets. There's a lot of information about safety. If you're doing technical or engineering challenges, sometimes you need to understand what you can and cannot use, or any challenge for that matter. So make sure that this is a reference guide that you're using often. There's a really great table of contents in there that you can jump straight to the pages that you need. So make sure that you do read this and you're familiar with it. And then the team challenge. This is where you're going to be spending most of the time. So this is going to outline every team challenge has a time limit. That includes setup. How much time do you have to set up and perform your team challenge? There's a cost limit. Each challenge is different and it can vary from year to year. So make sure that you know what that team budget is. And that's not how much you spend, it's how much it would cost for like the actual presentation itself. So like, if not the tools, not any prototypes, not anything that you didn't use, but on tournament day, your costumes, your props, your sets, how much does all of that cost? And what could another team reproduce your solution for the budget outlined in the challenge? And that's really just to provide a level playing field to make sure that everybody, that teams that have a lot of money, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be more successful than a team that doesn't have a lot of money. It does not have to be expensive to come up with a DI solution. Basements and garage sales and dollar stores and trash bins are great places for that. And these cost limits make the kids get really creative. It's also going to outline their challenge requirements. What is it that your team has to do? It's not going to tell you how you have to do it, but it's going to tell you what you have to do. And it's also going to break down all of the scoring about what points are worth what in the team challenge. Publish clarifications. If your team reads the rules of the road and reads the team challenge and you are confused about something, ask your regional directors, ask for help understanding the challenge. But if something is still unclear, these are the published clarifications, we'll get there. But if there is something unclear, you can write in for something called a team clarification, and the International Challenge Masters will review that and answer your team back. If through that process, or just if through the review, something is confusing in the challenge. So let me just take a step back. Every challenge has somebody called a challenge master that's the expert of that challenge. So at the sectional level, you're going to work with a regional challenge master, and then over an affiliate, there are people called affiliate challenge masters. And then at the top, there are two people that are the international challenge masters. And their job as the international challenge masters is to be the expert on that challenge and make sure that that challenge is clear. And if there's anything that's confusing in that challenge, they may issue a published clarification to just help clarify something. And if that happens, it supersedes the rules of the road and the team challenge. So it's really important for you to pay attention to those clarifications. There's usually not a lot of them, but you can find them under teams, clarifications, published clarifications, and then you pick your challenge. So when I took the screenshot earlier this week, the challenge So Extra had one published clarification. And it's just going to outline the section of the challenge and what it should read or what it should say. So make sure that you're paying attention to this, because sometimes those clarifications are really important to how your team might solve your challenge. So supporting materials. So once again, the three things that you have to have: the rules of the road, the team challenge, and the published clarifications. There's tons and tons of other things that can help you along the way. So there's a training library for DI that we're going to talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about team clarifications, but if you're confused, you can ask for help from the International Challenge Masters. The roadmap, we're going to go through a lot of that here at the end to help find some really great stuff. Parents, other adults, volunteers, team managers, your regional directors, lots of other people can all help you along the way. So trainings with DI Inc. has some trainings. So if you go into the My Account and visit training, there'll be a team manager section. Your section may look differently than this. This was the best screenshots that we could get, because Michaela and I don't have team manager rights. So we were trying to find relevant trainings. But there's going to be some, trainings that are really important. 2023 getting started as a team manager, 2023 team challenges. There's also training videos that outline each challenge. So really encourage you to go through that and get some more information there, and about your challenge specifics as well. But this can be a really great resource for you that's there if you need it. And you will need a team number to register and get a login for the resource area to have access to this as a team manager. Team clarifications. So we talked a little bit about this, but if your team is unclear about anything, please use this process. It is there for a reason. You can ask up to 10 clarification questions that will be answered directly by the International Challenge Master. I know this well. I have answered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these myself, but please use it. If you're confused, chances are somebody else is confused as well. And it's better to ask and get clarification. This happens through the resource area. So under teams and clarifications, there's a My Clarification section, and you'll be able to, as a team manager, submit these on behalf of your team. So you'll need your email address and your team number to be able to submit that clarification. Usually within a couple days, you'll get a response from the International Challenge Masters. The longer you wait, clarifications close the end of January. So if you ask something in that last week, it may take a little bit longer because tons of clarifications are coming in at the same time. But you'll get a response back. They are not able to validate solutions they haven't seen. They are gonna reference you back to parts of the challenge. So they're gonna say, see section 8.3.4 says this, or help guide you into specific sections. Or they may say, if it doesn't say you can't, then you can. That's something in DI to definitely know. These challenges, if you can't do something or you must do something, the challenge is going to tell you that. But if it doesn't say that you can't do that, generally, you're totally fine for doing that. But if you are thinking about something really off the wall or gray area, I do encourage you to use these team clarifications, because it'll just help make sure that you know that your solutions are valid and you're not going to get to the tournament and get a deduction or have a problem. So use those, they're there for you to have. So we'll talk about the roadmap in the last half of this, but before I get here, another question break. Anybody has any? All right. So the rest of this training, we're going to spend a lot of time on the roadmap. This guide is really, really great for you as a team manager. So it's a tool that guides your team through the creative process and helps you arrive at the tournament solution. It is long. I'm not going to lie about that. And it can be completely overwhelming, but use it as a resource. Don't feel like you have to use it or use it in its entirety. So what I've done is I've gone through this entire roadmap, and each chapter I've pulled out things where they start and things that are going to be useful for you at different times. It is totally optional. If it is helpful for you, use it. If it is not helpful for you, no problem. You don't have to use it. And you don't have to go through this. You can just look things up at the point in the season that you want to use it. It has a really, really robust table of contents to help get you into the areas that you really want to focus on. So we're going to go chapter by chapter, and I'm going to tell you what's in them and some of the stuff that I think is going to be really, really good for you to think about. So chapter 1 is really a lot of just how to use the roadmap, getting started, the creative process, DI pedagogy, all of that stuff that we kind of covered really fast at the beginning part of this training is in a lot more detail here. I think that this getting started checklist, though, is really a good thing for you as a team manager to go through. Just some things to make sure that you know that you can do and work through your team. Obviously, you don't have to do it, but something, it's on page, starts on page 7, and the checklist is something that might be useful for you, and has some links to some other things here. Chapter 2 is all about future readiness, college, project-based learning, project management overviews, social and emotional learning. Great for you to read, encourage you to read it. I think one of the most important things in here that can be useful is that in the project management overview, there's a challenge requirements identification worksheet. So DI partners with the Project Management Institute Educational Foundation. And so a lot of the materials in the roadmap are project management methodology of how to manage projects. And I didn't say this before, but by day, I'm a project manager. That's what I do as my day job and have for my entire career. And I joke that I've been a project manager since I was 9 on my DI team. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but I was the person on my DI team that read the rules of the road and read the rules of the road and read the challenge requirements and broke it down and made sure that we were actually getting stuff done and that we were solving the challenge. So back when I started, it wasn't called project management. It wasn't in here, but a lot of the tools in this roadmap are tools that you can help your kids just kind of organize their ideas and help them through that process. But I fully recognize that for some teams, it is going to be too much and it's just not going to work for you. And that's okay. But like a worksheet like this, is really kind of easy because it's like, okay, let's pick a challenge requirement in the challenge. What must be included in this challenge element? What must not be included in the challenge element? And how are you going to earn points for it? So there's also just a lot of really practical, easy things for you to do. It doesn't have to be a worksheet. You could do it on a whiteboard. You could have just a conversation about it. But as a team manager, help your team break down that challenge and break down what you have to do. That can be really helpful so that it's not quite so overwhelming. Whoops. Okay. Chapter 3. So this is really all about you as a team manager and the skills and knowledge that you should have and know to be successful as a team manager. A lot of what we've covered in the training tonight is in chapter 3 of the roadmap. So encourage you to kind of walk through it. One of the best things I think in this chapter is the instant challenge and teamwork activities supply box. So as a team manager, a lot of times you're like, okay, well, how do I prepare for these team meetings? What do I need to do? Having a box of just a bunch of stuff and a bunch of supplies handy that you can put together now is a really good thing to have, because then you're going to have what you need to pull instant challenges and things together. So this is really basic things: balloons, binder clips, cardboard tubes, cotton balls, craft sticks, AKA my spare bedroom and anybody's basement that's ever done DI. But just things that you can have that will help you have them ready when you need them for those days where you think, oh no, I forgot to plan an instant challenge for practice tonight. You can go and pull some stuff out of a supply box and have a quick instant challenge. And just kind of general supplies that you might need for your team meetings, or some household things that are not going to get used, but that may not be like consumable things, but just some other things that you might find useful as you're working through your team meetings. You certainly don't have to do that. Sorry. But it's a good starter list if you're wondering what stuff you might need as a team manager. Chapter 4 in the roadmap, definitely encourage you to read this. So this is diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and access. We believe that everybody can benefit from DI, and we want everybody to feel that they are welcome as part of the DI process. But sometimes you may have some students with some needs and some accommodations that might be needed to make sure that they can be a productive part of the team. So we encourage you, I'm not going to go through this tonight, but to read this chapter, and there are resources here that can help. And please reach out if you are in this situation where you are, trying to incorporate some kids together and may have some needs or accommodations that are needed. Because there's others in the DI community that can certainly help with this. But good resource for you to read and go back and reference if you need it. All right, question break. We're going to stop. All right, chapter 5. So this is where the roadmap starts getting into the nitty-gritty about planning your meetings, agendas, team benchmarks, lots of really good stuff. Don't get too hung up on this. If you try to do every activity in the roadmap, you will never solve your challenge. I mean, it's just a lot. And so But we hope that, especially if you are new, there is lots of great things in chapter 5 to help you come up with how do you set agendas? How do you schedule meetings? How do you pick certain things? What are your benchmarks? How to plan? Please use that. But don't feel like you have to go and use their 8-week, 12-week absolute, this is how you plan and do a DI tournament. If that works for you, great. It's there to be helpful, but don't feel like you have to use it all. But I do encourage you to go through and read it. And if you're looking for something specific, there's some really great templates and agendas for you to have. I highly encourage you, even if it's just back of the napkin scratches, to have a plan for every one of your meetings. It's just going to help you understand, like, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish tonight? It's just going to help you as a team manager feel a little bit more prepared. And it's going to help keep your kids on track and help you feel like you're accomplishing things along the way. So chapter 5 talks about planning team meetings, team benchmarks, which is something new this year. I've got a slide for that. And sample blank agendas and sample meeting agendas. So you need to have a parents meeting. There's a sample agenda for that. There's a meeting agenda for helping your team decide what challenge you're going to do. Working on a solution, requirements, understanding the requirements. So there's lots of things in here that can help you kind of work through that. It also talks about reflection and how important it is at the end of every meeting to take a little bit of time to reflect and getting ready for the tournament. So this is something that I really liked that they added that's new this year. So team benchmarks. So sometimes the full agenda isn't practical, but just getting some high level goals for your first meetings and things that you want to accomplish can be really helpful, right? Are we on track? How are we doing? So this is an example of like early challenge requirements in your first few meetings. You want to read the challenge requirements and understand the challenge. You want to break down those challenge requirements and really understand them. You know, complete a challenge requirements identification worksheet, you know, just different things. You don't have to do all of these things, but it's just some ideas. So if you're not quite in the, this is meeting 1, this is meeting 2, this is meeting 3 territory, and they don't have to be these benchmarks, but just kind of a list of some goals that you can check off with your team can be really helpful. Reflection. It is really important as part of the DI process to make sure that you are taking time to reflect. Every meeting, asking questions, checking in with your kids, and understanding where everybody is at. Is everybody feeling like they're having fun, that their ideas are being heard? Do they feel that they're doing okay? You know, just kind of walking through. There's a bunch of reflection questions here, you know, and just some things to think about. You don't certainly have to use them all, but I think it's good to just level set and check in. And at the end of a team meeting, it's good to just say, okay, how do we think today went? Let's talk about what we accomplished. All right, good. Even if it's just a thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways, check in. Sometimes that's just all you need. And then kind of planning for what you might need to do at the next session is helpful as well. All right, chapter 6. Chapter 6 is all about instant challenge. Now, you're not going to know what those challenges are ahead of time, but as part of your team meetings, you're going to want to be practicing those instant challenges. So chapter 6 outlines just the nitty-gritty, the general procedures, the process of how an instant challenge is run at a tournament. I encourage you, when you're doing instant challenges in your team meetings, to structure them formally like they're going to see them at the tournament. So walk through those procedures of how an instant challenge runs and practice that, because then when your team gets to the actual instant challenge room, that's going to be old hat. They're going to know how to do that, and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable about that. After this chapter also talks about reflection and processing questions. After every instant challenge, Take time to reflect and process to see what went well, what could have gone better, and work through that instant challenge. If you just do an instant challenge and they don't get any feedback and they just move on, that is a missed learning opportunity for your kids. They're going to get better by practicing instant challenge, even if you don't reflect, is important because it gets them used to the process. But where they're going to learn how to do it better is through that reflection and processing questions. This chapter also talks about team roles for instant challenge. This is one of my favorite things. It's on page 88. It's right here. It helps you as a team manager facilitate and teach them that everybody should have a job in an instant challenge. And that can help people know where they need to focus. And that way, when they get to the tournament, they know what their role is. And when you're starting out, switch up these roles. Every instant challenge you do, somebody else takes a role. Get some signs on a popsicle stick and says, you're the task manager, you're the performance manager. Put them in a pile and hand them out and let everybody start practicing these different roles. And then you'll start to see who's good at what, right? Like some people are going to be better at the task manager. That was definitely me. I was the person that was like, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. Or performance manager, timekeeper, how much time is left? Instant challenge, especially when you start, that 5 minutes is going to go super fast. So having somebody's job to ask how much time remains is really important in instant challenge. Materials manager. The first time you do an instant challenge and you give your kids sticky labels, guaranteed somebody's going to use all the labels all at once and then they're gone and then they need more and they're not going to have any more. So how do those materials are gold. How do you best utilize and manage those materials so that they're being used thoughtfully? The score manager, making sure that you know where the points are. And so when you're focusing on that instant challenge, you don't lose track of what you actually have to do. Say you have to build a tower and you get 2 points for every inch of height up to 60 inches, and then you don't get any more points. It's good to know that, right? So you don't try to keep building your tower. Once you hit the max points, it's time to stop. Or maybe, you're getting all your points are on the presentation and you get no points on something else. So it's important that somebody is keeping track of what that looks like. And then just people that work and float. And this can be different for different kinds of instant challenges. Like somebody may take a lead on a task-based, somebody may take a lead on a performance-based, but it's a good way to keep everybody involved and get everybody having a job, especially when they're new and learning how to work together. Okay. Sorry. Project management tools are also in this chapter just to kind of help through this and coming up with idea focusing and generating activities. There's a bunch of mini challenges in here as well. Mini challenges are great because they're just little things that you can throw in as part of your team challenges that are not quite as formal, just to get your kids used to the process and learning some skills, and some example instant challenges as well. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about idea generating and focusing tools in a few more slides. I thought that was next, but I put that a little bit later. Any questions on instant challenge or the breakdown that anybody has? It's Michaela for. All right. Chapter 7, moving on in the process. So chapter 7 deals with creative and critical thinking skills. This chapter, I love this. This is all about tools and process and things that you practically can hands-on do with your team to help work through their process and work through kind of their decision making. So creative thinking, critical thinking, tools and practice, that section, Race for Fluency, decision-making matrices, and just kind of tools that you can use. There's some really good practical things. This here is an example of a decision-making matrix, which I think is really awesome for teams to use. All right, my battery is going to die. Hold on a second. Let me plug this in. And make sure that, oh, my power cord is not plugged into the outlet, so that would help. All right, I think we're good now. But this decision-making matrix is really, I think, helpful. So early on in the season, having conversations about how decisions are going to be made with your team can be really useful. Things like meeting times and dates, your team manager is going to decide that. But then other things like, okay, so how are we going to decide which team challenge we're going to solve? Consensus? And how are we going to do that if we can't reach a consensus? We're going to use a tool from the roadmap. Our story, costumes and props, technical elements. Who is responsible for all of these things? And if there is conflict or people have differing opinions, how are you going to solve that? And so just helps facilitate conversations early on before there is conflict, so that then you as a team manager, when your team is arguing and can't make a decision, you can pull this little handy sheet out and say, oh, guys, remember, let's look at our decision-making matrix. What are we worrying about? Okay, we're talking about costumes and props today. All right. Well, yep. Keep in mind, no, you said Danielle was in charge of that. So, all right, do we all agree on that? Okay, that's how we're going to do this. Or nope, all right, we're going to private vote. We decided that's how we were going to handle this. So just, there's some really just practical tools in this section that I think are really good for you as a team manager. This chapter also talks about something called building fluency. Generating ideas is a skill, and your kids need to practice this. This screenshot here, this building fluency, is not in the roadmap. This is in the handout materials that I'm going to send you, that we'll send you after this training. But we want you to have and work with your kids on building fluency and just getting used to coming up with lots and lots of ideas very quickly. You know, name states or types of states, name as many kinds of ships as you can, name as many bases as you can, or use base in a statement. Like, you know, name as many bears as you can. It doesn't matter what it is. Just get your kids used to thinking out loud and generating ideas. Because when it comes to generating ideas, the common stuff is going to come out right away, right? You want to get that stuff out of the way as fast as possible, because you're going to generate lots and lots and lots of ideas. And then your kids are going to stop and it's going to be quiet. And you as a team manager are not going to fill that silence or move on. You're going to let that silence happen and let them think, because the good stuff, those creative ideas, come after that plateau. And so if you always just stop at the common and say, yep, we're moving on, force them to be uncomfortable in the silence, or force them to sit and think a little bit more, because then they're going to get to that creative ideas. One of and we're not going to do it today just because it's hard on a webinar, but one of the things that I like to do is say, name as many kinds of trees as you can. And if you do this in a group, you're going to say ash, birch, pine, Christmas, you know, you're going to get lots of trees. And then somebody might say shoe tree, a little more creative than an ash tree, right? Pine, you know, money tree, different kinds of trees, but still like physical objects of trees. But then it might sit for a while. And then somebody might say geometry. Did I spell tree, T-R-E-E? No, I just said tree. So geometry, symmetry. So you can see, then somebody throws out something that's a little bit different and a little more creative. And then your kids bounce off of that and kind of think outside of the box. So really encourage you to work some of this stuff into your team practices as just fun warm-up, improv-y kind of activities as part of your practices, so that you can get your kids used to coming up with ideas. And this can be done verbally. It's also really great for them to write ideas down on pieces of paper, you know, lots of different ways that you can do this, but with idea generating, but this is a skill that's really important. Tools. So we don't have time tonight to dig into these tools. I wish we did. I love these tools. But there are some things that you can walk in and like use when you're generating ideas or helping narrow things down to figure out how you want to actually use what you actually are going to use to solve your challenge. And so there's an idea brains generating chart. There's something called ABC brainstorming, where you literally have to come up with something for starting with every letter of the alphabet. There's a tool called Scamper, Mix and Match. So there's a lot of things that you can use. And I encourage you to take some time just walking through those tools. The roadmap does a really good job teaching you what they are and how to use them. This is a really fun little grid. And this can also help you come up with ideas for Instant Challenge as well. This is called the Mix and Match grid. The idea is you put things across the top and you number 1 through 10. So you have the kids generate, let's name 10 heroes. Can be anything you want. You just write 10 things down. All right, name 10 villains. They don't have to go with the heroes. Nothing across is making sense. Name 10 villains. Let's talk about 10 types of conflicts that could happen in a story. And you put 10 types of conflicts down. 10 settings. Where could a story take place? And you write 10 settings down. Humor. I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but things that are funny, like something humorous that could happen in the story. You write 10 things down. And then after you get this done, you have your kids come up, shout out 5 numbers, and you come up with 5 numbers in a row. So then you say, all right, hero 3 is a prince, and 6 is an ogre, and the conflict is we ran out of toilet paper. I mean, it can be random things. And then you have them try to write a story or come up with a story out of all of these things that don't seem to go together, that now go together. Or maybe this is a performance-based instant challenge that you have them do. So you pick these random things that don't go together, and they laugh and they have fun with it, and then they have to put on a performance-based instant challenge, putting all of these things together. So the idea of these grids are to get in a lot of these tools are to separate the ideas from the individual. And so you look at things objectively and think about how you put different things together in unexpected ways. And so that's what these tools are. And they can help you just kind of walk through that, especially if you're stuck. So if you're in a team meeting and you're trying to do something and you're just not succeeding at coming up with ideas or narrowing things down, it's a really good way to just kind of walk through that. So I'm going to move us forward here, but please encourage you to look at this. Hits and hotspots is a really simple one. Literally, give your kids stacks of Post-it notes and have them generate ideas for something on a Post-it note, and then stick them all over the walls. Nobody knows what their ideas are. They are no longer, this is Chrissy's idea or this is Anne's idea. They are ideas on a wall. And then you get those little sticker dots and give every kid 5 sticker dots and have them put a dot on the ones they like. And then you can start narrowing things down that way. So these are just interactive, good, useful tools and tips for you as a team manager to help your kids come up with stuff for their solutions. Chapter 8 is all about teamwork. Teamwork is hard. Kids don't know how to do this. This is part of skills and part of the journey of being on a DI team. So this talks about team development, successful teamwork, helps develop team trust, setting common goals and purposes, good communication, and learning respect for people and ideas. This part of the roadmap has something called the individual interest inventory in it. This is something that is really fun for your teams. Michaela, did you ever electronically figure this out to share?
Yep, and I can throw it in with the other resources we share.
Yeah, so we've got a link where you electronically can have people do this on phones or fill this out electronically in like a Google form and can auto calculate versus printing this out on paper. But basically, you have every kid do this and it helps just gauge their interests. And then you can see collectively as a group where your areas of interest are for your team. And you can use this to help pick a challenge. You can just use this to get to know each other. It's just a fun interactive activity. And we've got a link for you to do that interactively with your teams as well. One thing that this chapter does really well is talks about the stages of team development. Teamwork is a process and teamwork is a journey. So you may have heard of this before, but different stages: forming, storming, norming, performing. Your team isn't going to start in the performing stages, and that's okay. So when they form and when they start, everybody's going to be kind of reserved, polite, maybe on their best behavior, laying out the land, figuring out who is everybody else, kind of figuring out how to work together and what this whole DI thing is about. Don't be surprised if some team meetings in, your team reaches the storming stage. They get competitive, they can be argumentative, disruptive, thinking in terms of I. This is the storming phase. And, and there's another slide that talks about how things that you as a team manager can do to help. But they might move that. So then you get past that and they move more towards into norming, where they're able to learn how to interact, reach agreements, make decisions, defined roles. So things like those instant challenge roles can help get them there, accepting each other, learning how to work together. That's kind of that norming stage. And then the ultimate goal is to get them all to that performing stage, where they are identifying and working as a team, thinking of as a we with shared goals in that performing state. Your team may not get to performing, and that's okay. Sometimes sometimes teams get there really fast. Sometimes teams don't get there. I had a team manager come to my training several years ago now. Well, many, many years ago. Her and her husband now praise for me. But she came to team manager training as an experienced team manager because her team was terrible in instant challenge. They knocked their team challenge out of the park. And she came because she wanted help, trying to help as a team manager, get them better at instant challenge. And she saw this slide and she said, Chrissy, my team's been in storming for 2 years. And took that as a realization. And then we talked about strategies to get them out of that. And that same team got first place in instant challenge at globals several years later. So it can be done, is what I'm saying. Have faith in yourself. So as a team manager, there are different things that you can do in each stage. It's important to just kind of know where your kids are at and you can help. So like forming relationships, getting to know each other, team members, moving them to start coming up with ideas, because storming isn't bad. They just need to work through some things. Storming, focus on the process, bring out those tools, help them learn, kind of value everybody's input, set some good ground rules on being respectful for idea generation, and really helping them kind of work through and build that identity as a team. Once you get to the norming phase, you can start focusing more on those results, focus on their plans, their timelines, moving things back, just kind of challenging one another, helping them get better and better. If there are conflicts, they are more likely to be able to reach them head on and talk about it and work through it. And then, the performing phase is where you're going to really be able to really start holding each other accountable, focusing on their results and their process. You're going to skip around. Your teams may be performing one day, they may be storming the next day, and that's okay. But just keep this in mind, and there's a lot of things to help in the roadmap, especially if your team is in that storming phase. Team builders are a great thing. You're also going to there's team builders in this roadmap, but I'm going to send you a list of 19 of my favorite team builders as well. in addition for you to do. So we'll send that out in their resources. It's lots of really just hands-on stuff, easy stuff that you can do with hula hoops, ropes, tarps, paper towels, or not paper towels, toilet paper rolls, tennis balls, really simple, easy things that you can do with common materials. So this is just something we want to share that's in addition to the roadmap. All right, chapter 9 of the roadmap. This is all about project management tools. Talks about the project management steps. They're very logical. They align with the creative process, and talks about planning a solution for your team challenge. Deliverables, tasks, project plans, goals, resources, scope, roles, time management, estimating. Grown adults don't know how to estimate, so please don't think that this is something your kids are going to be experts at. If I ask my developers how much time something's going to take, most of the time they don't know. So it's a really good resource for you to pull certain things out to help with certain things that your team is struggling with. As a project manager, it is definitely not a bad thing to create a project plan. But do not feel like you need to create a full-on project plan in Excel with dependencies and predecessor tasks and like really go all in on this. But it's definitely, I think, a good thing to teach your kids to walk through and learn, even if it's simple time management, like t-shirt size, or not time management, estimating. How long do we think this is going to take to get something done? Maybe it's not in terms of hours, but maybe we think it might take us 2 team meetings, or we think it might take us 4 team meetings, or t-shirt size estimation. Is it an extra small or an extra large? Like, how much work do we think it's going to be? Even that level of thinking about what you have to do can help your team prioritize what things are that they need to do. So definitely good stuff in this chapter, but please don't feel like you have to have formal project management. It doesn't need to be there, especially if you have new teams. But a little bit of structure is definitely good too. So use what you want, use what makes sense, but don't be overwhelmed by this chapter. All right, so we are nearing the end here. All right, we're doing okay on time. So think about your resources. Who do you know that you can help? Once again, parents. Ask for help as you need it. Sign everybody to bring a snack. Give random lists of things for instant challenges to your parents to bring if you don't want to buy everything yourself. Have somebody bring paper towel roll, toilet paper rolls, paper clips, envelopes, things like that. Feel free to divvy out and send a letter home and said, hey, I need this stuff, and have people bring stuff in. Teachers, what can teachers teach you? Where can you go for what do you need to do? If they're putting on a school play, see if you can take a field trip to go as a team to go look at how they built their sets or what they did for their costumes, and just take a look and see what the possibilities are. So just think creatively about your resources. Home Depot can be a great resource. Just go to the hardware store or Home Depot and wander the aisles and learn about things. Even let the employees help you. They always want to help, so take advantage of that. Like, can you tell me about all the different adhesives on this shelf and what the differences are and how they can use them? If they don't, obviously if it's a really busy Saturday, maybe not the best time, but as long as but don't tell them that this is what you're trying to do. Like, just leave it open-ended and learn from their properties, of the properties of certain materials and certain things. So the point being, there are a lot of people that can help, and there are a lot of things that you can do. Regional directors are great resources. Also, other team managers. If you have other team managers in your school that have managed teams before or are new as well, having a buddy team manager is a really great thing. Grab a cup of coffee, talk about things. You can learn from each other and help with each other. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm going to give you my email address today too. And if you've got questions, ask. We're happy to guide you, happy to help. Your regional directors are. We don't want you to be frustrated and stuck and having a bad time, because we can help you through that. And there's somebody that's willing to help. Like I said, involve your parents. If you haven't already, I really encourage you to have a parent meeting, just to kind of talk through your expectations and the schedule and how this is all going to work. Make sure that you have the information that you need as well. Emergency contact information for all your kids. Review the DI youth protection policy that's on the DI website. That's really important. And just make sure that you're asking for help whenever you need it, whether it's an extra set of hands at a meeting, if somebody needs to gather supplies, bringing a snack, whatever, like, ask for help. They can certainly contribute. And then, what are some things that you can do now? If you haven't yet, log in at destinationimagination.org, check out that resource area. Make sure that you establish an account with a password if you haven't. You're going to be asked to accept the code of contact for 2023-24 the first time you click in, and then that'll put you in the resource area. And that's where you can get links to the training videos, the published clarifications, the team clarifications, all of those documents that we talked about tonight. All of that stuff is going to be in the resource area. So make sure that you can log in and get in there. You will need your team number as well to get in there and have access, because they'll have to link you as having a team member. And then once you have your team member, something else is you're going to need a background check. Your school coordinators or regional directors can help more around that, but just if you haven't done that already, that's something that is required, and to access that. And then meet with your teams. I'm sure some of you already are, but just dive in and have fun. Everybody starts somewhere. The first few meetings are just, even if you do nothing but play some team building games and have people get to know each other at the first few meetings, that's totally fine. So I think I'm going to wrap this up here, and then we can stop the recording. But so if you've got any questions, we'll break and pause for that. My name is Chrissy Burr. This is my email address. If you do have questions, please reach out. We'll send you a copy of these slides. They'll be available. And we will also make sure that you get all of the resources. I've got a whole folder full of stuff that we'll make sure that we send out to you all for lots of good stuff as well. But thank you so much. You are not alone. You've got this. We have full confidence in you. So thank you.